Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Miraculous Ladybug, and others. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Hello.
Justin Cummings.
Hey, guys.
And Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
Today, Delaney, Justin, Michelle, and I will be having the second of our Steven Universe Roundtables. Our topic this week will be Peridot, and mostly her redemption arc recently on the show. This is our second roundtable. We're going to be doing these every Friday night. Look for these to come out late Fridays and weekly, if not more, hopefully if the show comes back, Steven Universe podcast here at the Overly Animated Podcast. You can check us out at overlyanimated.com. Spoilers for all of SU, but we're not going to, and this is as much for you guys as it is for the audience. We're not going to talk about the leaks, so no leaks.
I haven't seen them. As far as I'm concerned, they don't exist.
That's pretty impressive that you have not been spoiled. Yeah.
Especially, a lot of it's because I've been avoiding Tumblr like the plague. So
there's many reasons for that, but yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My recommended YouTube spoiled it.
Aww.
I'm so mad.
Oh yeah, that seems like a problem. YouTube should have like a spoiler thing for
at least in the title.
Literally, I get on YouTube and it's like, do you want Carmilla or Steven Universe? And then it's like Cora, and it's like, dang.
Describes you, but yeah, the thumbnail seems like a problem. Anyway, okay, let's get into Peridot. So I want to go around the horn here. Most of this is gonna be about her redemption arc, but I kind of want to ask you guys, what's your personal opinion on Peridot? Like, let's say, like, what did you think when she came onto the show for the season 1 finale? What did you think of her earlier in season 2? And like, what do you think of her now recently? That she's had this major arc, has that changed, et cetera, et cetera? What are your favorite aspects of Peridot? Any of those? Feel free to address any of those topics. Let's start with Delaney.
Well, I binge watched Steven Universe, got caught up, and then we started covering Steven Universe. So I had been I knew on Tumblr Peridot was this weird green Dorito, and everyone loved her, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then I started actually watching, and I got to Peridot. I've loved Peridot since the beginning, and this is probably shaped because of Tumblr, but she's just ridiculous, and I thought she was great. And she's funny, and this redemption arc just makes me love her more. But I always liked Peridot the worst villain ever. That's just she's so great and lame. I adore her. If I was a Crystal Gem, I would be, or a gym at all, I would be Peridot. I would be the dorky lame
Dorito?
Gym, that is.
Okay.
Dorito. I would be a lame green Dorito. That's who I would be.
Are you
Pearl,
saying
some
that
weird
you're
mixture.
Are you saying that you're a Peridot hipster? You've liked her from the start?
I can't say hipster because Tumblr, but Tumblr ruined it first.
What episode were you caught up around? I don't even remember.
I don't even.
I think it was probably past our initial Peridot.
Well, I've seen 2 Steven Bombs though, so it was before I think. I saw Steven Bomb 3 and 4, live. Okay. So I think it was some time before that. Watching regularly. I think we watched. Were we? I don't know. There's no telling.
Yeah, we'll see. Justin, what about you?
So I started watching the show from the beginning. So I saw the episode Warped Tour the night it aired, and I was so excited because something was coming back through the galaxy warp, and I'm sitting here lapis, and then it was this small green thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting here what? Who is this? Why is this? And the way they built her up at first, the Gems had no clue who she was, which looking back is really interesting because it means that species didn't exist on Homeworld yet when they left.
Interesting. I had never thought of that.
They know
Peridot? What is this?
Yeah. So they're did they make... So looking back, that episode's even better. I just rewatched it. But at first, I was slightly confused, wondering why they were doing this now. But throughout season 1, where they kind of just mentioned it, building up towards Return to Jailbreak, I thought she was an okay villain. And then they just turned her even more absurd. And then I didn't really like her, until Catch and Release. Because everyone was like, oh, they're probably going to make Peridot good. And I didn't want that until they actually did it.
Yeah. Michelle.
Well, like Justin, I've been following Peridot since she first came in Warped Tour. And I think kind of, seeing a new gem, especially back then in season 1, it was such a big deal, because Steven Universe is such a slow burn kind of show. Like, we're always wanting to hear more and learn more and grow the universe more. And we get it in, like, such small little tidbits that, like, getting a new gem at that point was so exciting. And we really didn't... The impression of, like, Peridot, I think I liked her most when we didn't know as much about her, because she was just this very, like, kind of menacing, kind of off-putting, like, very, like, do her job, kind of get out of there, like, looking after herself kind of personality. And I really liked that about her. And as the show kind of went along, I don't think I really developed a strong opinion of her until, say, Jailbreak, because then you start seeing her dynamic with other homeworld gems, and it kind of puts in perspective, like, yeah, she was really kind of terrifying to the crystal gems when they knew nothing about her in the context of the work she was doing on Earth, but, like, next to Jasper, like, she's such a lackey, you know? And that, I think, made her a lot more sympathetic for me. And by the time we got to, like, Catch and Release, it's clearly like, okay, well, she's, like, completely stripped of all the power and authority she had. She's really at the mercy of the Christie Gems. And I really liked the way she was developing with Steven. That felt pretty natural. And I think that's one of the things that helped make her redemption arc seem more believable when it actually happened. Even though like I said before, I was really surprised it went so quickly with that, because I assumed that was going to be like a season 2 finale kind of thing, and they were really going to, like, drag that out for the whole season 2, and they didn't, and I appreciate that, because it was definitely not what I was expecting.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna get into, like, was this redemption arc too fast? And I feel I'm worried that all of our opinions here were colored by kind of my saying of this on the podcast, and that it's like this is not going to be this fast, right? But I feel like everyone also thought that. Yeah, so we've kind of had, like, I liked Peridot all along. We've had, like, I didn't think much about Peridot, and then I liked her, and I'm gonna be the third opinion, which is that, like, I, like, kind of actively disliked Peridot in the beginning. So I didn't care that much in Return and Jailbreak. Like, she was kind of just there. I thought it was interesting, like, the concept of her, but once we got to the beginning of season 2, and I remember this being kind of longer than it was. Turns out it's only 2 episodes. Just like the Peridot is evil and we're going to chase Peridot all over the world kind of thing we're in for a little bit. And it was maybe more conceptual than manifested in each episode. But I was just pretty tired of her at that point. I didn't think she was super interesting. But that, again, only 2 episodes, and it changed very fast. We got into the Peridot redemption arc, the barn arc type episodes, and suddenly Peridot is easily one of the best characters on the show. She's responsible for some of the best plots on the show, and, like, not only is she responsible for some of the best content, but she's kind of the most representative of the show's larger themes. I feel like the show's been most successful in its kind of, like, real world to the home world allegory when doing that through Peridot's behavior in some of the recent episodes. And just, even though she's kind of dominated recent episodes, like, to an extent where we've definitely gotten less development from other characters, it's like not to the detriment of the show at all. It's, like, to the show's benefit, because I feel like we've had a lot of our best content recently, and I think it's in large part due to her character. Yeah, and I think it's been, I guess, aspects of her character. It's like the kind of representation for the, like, intolerance in our world that we've kind of seen from Peridot has been, like, the primary thing that I've liked about her. I liked how kind of, like, earnestly the show writes this character, someone who's, like, not good and then just, like, can be like a good person. I feel like a lot of shows don't do this, where it's just like the show's not really judging Peridot at all, kind of, and that's kind of, that really stands out. I think a lot of fans maybe more on the Crystal Gem side of the things than the Steven side, right? And it's like, no, I mean, obviously there's Peridot fans, but, like, but it's like, no, this character can have, like, these awful views and just can change. And I think guiding through all of that has been Shelby Rabara, who's been absolutely incredible voicing Peridot.
Yes.
To the extent where, like, I don't think any other voice actor on the show has stood out as much as her. Like everyone's great, but like, she takes this character to another level, to the extent where I think Peridot's kind of like the standout character on the show right now, kind of supplanting Pearl in that role. I don't know if you guys agree with that statement.
No, I would agree. It's just, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, specifically with the voice acting. Like, the way Peridot reacts to things is stellar. Like, she seems ridiculous. And Justin, you called her absurd. Like, she got to a point where she's kind of absurd. And a lot, like, Peridot's ridiculous. But I think a lot of it has to do with, like, just in context of Steven Universe and, like, in comparison to the other characters, like, Garnet is, like, kind of, she's not subdued, but Garnet doesn't talk a lot, and when she does, it's kind of like, everyone be quiet, Garnet is speaking. But Peridot, like, reacts, like, I don't know, like, more kind of like a person, quote unquote, like, in the way, like, and she, like, breaks octaves, and, like, her voice cracks, and it's just, like, she just seems really, like, real.
Didn't you hear that?
Yes.
I was like, wait, who did that?
It almost sent me into a coughing fit. I was so shocked by it.
Okay, I'm gonna like see how many times I play this throughout the course of the podcast. This is like the evolution. This is the first step in the evolution of me having a soundboard. But yeah, that Peridot line in Log Date is that line read by Shelby is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like I thought it was great, and then just thinking about it more, it's also just like the best. Just the completely like peppy yet obviously dejected no is just like the best thing ever. Okay,
That whole episode, she's just incredible.
yeah, let's get to that. That's the last of the specific episodes we're going to talk about here. Let's go episode by episode through the major Peridot episodes on the show. What do you guys think of starting at Return and Jailbreak? Do you really think that there's any sort of significant Peridot before these two?
I think the only thing worth mentioning is the fact that she's the first time we see a villain as opposed to like a monster of the week.
Yeah,
and so I think that's
very
kind
true.
of
Yeah, true.
that's kind of important, but she doesn't really show up until Return and Jailbreak.
Yeah. Okay.
Like in any way that matters, that is.
Yeah. So let's talk about these two episodes and what we see from Peridot here. She's kind of she's mostly in the background for those two, but
It's like for these two, she's just there.
She's kind of just there. But what was like your impression at the time of her, and also like what do you like think of how she was presented now? Whoever wants to field that about these two episodes.
How she's presented in the two
Like,
episodes
yeah, what's
now?
like no, just like what does Peridot? I'm for each of the episodes, I'm gonna be like, what does Peridot do? Like, how is this character like? In what like tone is and like light is like this character presented? And how? So we're gonna like track how this changes as we go.
Well, she's basically just like, because when they destroy her communication underground at the kindergarten, she's like, well, I'm gonna report this, and we get like a very clear idea of her just kind of like telling like on the gyms to like her superiors, kind of like telling mom like when you do something bad. And like the first thing she says when the ship lands is like, there they are, those are the ones who keep destroying my things, you know. So it's kind of just like, all right, like I brought my backup to like deal with you, you know. But she's
gets kind of
go ahead.
intimidating at that point. Like, we have this giant green hand coming out of the sky.
Right.
Like, this looks ridiculous. But like, and the gyms are kind of worried. So I think this is like, you know, we kind of had like, okay, whatever, Peridot, like you helicopter away from things. You're like so not intimidating. But then she comes with Jasper and like this giant ship, and it's like, oh, Peridot's like kind of important maybe, and like kind of scary. Like she might do something.
I think Peridot's most
I think,
intimidating
like,
because she's with Jasper too, though. Because Jasper's such an aggressive, strong kind of force, and again, like a new gem we'd never seen, who's clearly like super strong.
I think they did a lot there. Like, they did a lot here in this, because we kind of had, like, okay, whatever, Peridot, like, you're just this green Dorito who flies around, and, like, you're, like, the tech guy. But, like, in this episode, and, like for this, you know, for the Return and Jailbreak, we have, like, this is really, like, Peridot the villain. This is, like, the real threat Peridot poses to the gyms. And, like, I think they did a lot of this shaping, like, the ship, and having Jasper there to really, like, actually make Peridot intimidating. Like, I think a lot of it's a lot of like propping for Peridot to look more intimidating, for us to like kind of be like, oh, she's actually kind of like a villain for a little bit. Because like obviously until this point she was the villain, you know, kind of like, you know,
The closest we had.
yeah, I mean, I have to keep going after her, and like she's doing stuff, and we don't really know what she's doing, but it's bad. But then Steven's like, let's maybe stop breaking things. But they do a lot of propping here for Peridot, and I think it comes off very well. You know, this is kind of like, oh geez, like this is intimidating. Like this is actually like serious. Like this is how we're building the tone up for like the finale, and like to this point where, you know, the big reveal happens. And so I think they do like this is probably the darkest Peridot we get, like the scariest Peridot we have.
Yeah, I think she's definitely like somewhat scary here. I think a lot of impressions I saw of her from the finale were like the kind of the view of her as like the bureaucrat and the engineer, like the engineering bureaucrat, right? And I think that's most clear from this finale. And I think that she's like intimidating, but maybe, I don't know. I think I maybe disagree with most here. I think maybe to 2 episodes in the beginning of season 2, although we'll get specific takes on that in a second. But yeah, I think most people didn't have too much of an impression of her after this. They like shipped her with Lapis for no apparent reason, and they continued to do that. And which we'll get more to in a future shipping one of these. But yeah, and I don't know, she wasn't super standout yet, right? I feel like people maybe more talked about Jasper and Lapis and stuff.
Well, she's just there. Like Peridot doesn't really do a lot here.
Yeah.
Besides fire the ship.
She gets tied up by Amethyst.
Yeah, like she's just Peridot's just like in the corner screaming the whole time, not really doing anything.
Yeah. All right, let's
it's just
move.
that one moment of like the ship.
Yeah, and a lot of her menacing likeness is connected to the homeworld in general, and not necessarily specifically her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not specific. It's just what Peridot means right now.
All right, let's
like
move
what she stands for.
Yeah, let's move to the beginning of season 2, and I'm gonna throw it to Justin here. What do you? Let's give an over. You can talk about these together or separately if you want. Cry for help and friendship. Kind of the same question. Like, how's Peridot presented in here? What's she like mainly doing? Is it different than the Peridot we saw in Return and Jailbreak?
Well, really, in Cry for Help, all we see is her trying to send out that signal, build up the communication tower again. And this is really, I think, what's interesting with Peridot. They use this moment to make her the object for Pearl during Sardonic's arc, where Pearl's all about, we gotta get Peridot, even though all Peridot actually did was send out that signal. And so I think Peridot is used more as a goal than an actual character during this arc.
So not much on there. So how about friendship?
Friendship is where I think that's where we first kind of get a look. First off, it's foreshadowing the fact that she's smaller than she actually is with the whole boot coming off. But also I think that's where they show that she is beatable, and that builds up. So I think mostly friendship is her last stand, because the next time we see her, she's beat pretty easily.
Were these really
it's kind
the
of
only
showing
two?
Like how crazy Peridot is.
Well, I will say,
like
even though we don't see her in Joyride kind of left a weird impression because like it was kind of this thing of like you know, it's landed, she could be close by, we don't know where she is, but like her ship's there and this huge like crater's there, and like what is she up to? And her absence, I think, kind of was more menacing than when we actually saw her in a lot of ways. Later on,
even though she's not
that's
like
the majority of Peridot.
Well,
almost
like,
every
Peridot
episode
really isn't like very much like the beginnings of Peridot. Peridot's not really around. They're just talking about Peridot a lot and dealing with like things Peridot's done, but Peridot's like not on screen. Like this is like really the most of Peridot we have is really her redemption arc. Like Peridot isn't on screen a ton of the time. Like Peridot's really an idea until really her arc, because until she gets captured, like Peridot's just kind of like this figure that we see glimpses of, but we don't really have a good idea of who, like, of Peridot. Like she's just, and the gyms are always just talking about her, but she's not on screen a lot. Because that's like, Dylan, you made that comment. You're like, is it really just these two? And it's like, really, it is, because Peridot really isn't on screen a lot until the start.
In the beginning of season 2, we have a string of episodes where she's kind of just like a shadow or whatever. In that we're like we had a lot of trying to find episodes. Yeah. So she was more of a menacing presence on the show. Okay. So we have these two, and I don't know. Like it's she's not actually on screen that much, but by this point, I'm like, okay, this is a lot of Peridot, and I think this actually extends in the catch and release too, because I think probably the first half of that is similar to Cry for Help Friendship, although I haven't seen the episode since it aired, and I don't know, like I feel like there's a sharp divide between a lot of people have made the comments that like kind of when these beginning redemption arc episodes are airing, that the Peridot we see here is like pretty different than the ones from Closer to Return and Jailbreak and towards the beginning of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do we think about that? Do we
Well, I
think
it's
that
hard
there's
to say
like do we think there's like a natural progression for her?
Well, I think it's hard to say that because we're seeing more of Peridot. Like here in Friendship, we kind of see Peridot unhinged. Like this is like Peridot desperate to, and like she thinks she's won, but then she hasn't at all. And then like later, she gets captured and is beaten pretty easily, like Justin said. But we have this, like, we don't see, the thing is, like, and this is what the show does so well, is that we really do not see Peridot, like, at all for, like, a very long time. Like, she's just this idea. And the gems are just always, like, so many steps behind Peridot. And Peridot's just this idea. And then we're getting to this point where we're actually seeing Peridot. And I think that's why people are like, oh, she's so different. But it's like, we didn't really know Peridot. She was just this idea. And we had, like, poured all this into an idea of Peridot, but now we're actually seeing her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think because, like, the less we know about Peridot, the more we can assume she's dangerous and assume, like, she's out to get the Earth, and that she has all these bad intentions. And the more you actually see, the more you're like, okay, she's kind of incompetent. She's kind of a techie, sort of just doing her job. She, she gets frustrated when things don't go her way. She might be a relatively young gem. Like, the more we get those kind of small insights, the more you're kind of like, okay, well, obviously she's not, like, this huge threat.
And I mean, keep in mind what happens to her in Catch and Release. She's beaten, bubbled, depowered, and believes she's going to be harvested. So she's basically stripped of all dignity.
Yeah.
Well, she's lost all of her armaments too. Like they threw them away.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you talk about these two episodes, Justin? Catch and Release and When It Rains. What do we see from Peridot here? She's like a large part of these in the bathroom, right? So.
Steven Universe has subverted bathroom humor better than anything, because for all its bathroom jokes, it's brilliant. But no, but we see her completely inept at this point because she is now having to adjust to Earth life, and she literally knows nothing. She thinks everything is a weapon, from a toothbrush to a toilet, and so we see her almost like a baby or a puppy or something like that, where they had to kind of build her up as non-threatening now if they're going to redeem her. And so I think that's why we needed Catch and Release and then When It Rains to see how little she actually knew outside of her armor.
What do you think of the Peridot that we see in these two episodes? I feel like it's a little different. We explore different aspects of her once we get into Back to the Barn and further. But here we're specifically like seeing and how she's approaching Earth and stuff like that. What was your impression of her from these?
I really liked it. I thought it was well done. I thought it was unique, and I thought it also gave some really interesting character moments because we never really get to see Steven teaching. Mm-hmm. Here we did, and I thought that was a very cool dynamic and one I would like to see more of.
I honestly wasn't a big fan of it the first time I saw it because, I don't know, because I think in a lot of ways it was kind of a shock to see her so different from what we had come to, like, interpret her as from the rest of the past episodes. But, like, as it goes on, it makes a lot more sense. And, like, once the last Steven bomb came around, I think it really fleshed out her character a lot more, where it was, like, super believable that she was going to be, like, this helpless, confused, like, kind of puppy dog figure. But initially, I wasn't crazy about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it gives a lot to her character because, like, she's, like, she's helpless and her weapons are gone. She thinks she could die at any moment, and she's so sassy. Like, Peridot,
she's sassy
down a little bit. Like, she's so snarky, and it's great. Like, we have, like, these are really moments that you really define characters, or these, like, weak, vulnerable moments, and we just get Peridot just asking questions and just all up in Steven's face, and it's so funny. Like, their dynamic is so great. Which is part of what makes, like, Peridot so believable, is because of her dynamic with Steven. And, like, this is such a, like, this episode, just a single episode, is such a beautiful, just, like, characterization of Peridot, and it's just really great beginning to this arc, because that's how you really build a character, and, like, really show, like, really, you peel back the layers, and at like this most vulnerable moment. Like, this is Peridot, and she's like afraid of a toothbrush, and it's like, really, and you're still being this sassy? Like, geez.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I'm kind of with Michelle in these two episodes. These aspects of Peridot weren't as like innately interesting to me as the stuff we get to after this. But it's definitely interesting to see, just how she's reacting to things, and throughout all of this, or it just is it like a personality? Is she like innately like kind of bold and kind of outspoken to a certain extent? I don't know. This is different, much different than the quiet, subdued Peridot we get from Return and Jailbreak, I would say. Do you agree?
Right.
Yeah, I think honestly that has a lot to do with like how she sees her positioning in terms of the crystal gems versus like Jasper.
Like, she thinks she's higher than them.
So she can talk to them however she wants. But with Jasper,
they like
it's
directly
very,
get into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we later learn, it's like an authority like chain type thing. So I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think those episodes play back better in retrospect, probably. Okay, let's get into Back to the Barn and Too Far. I feel like our grouping, my like mental groupings of these episodes are influenced by the dumb like Cartoon Network airs them. Like there's no inherent like tie between these two that's different from the Steven Bomb. Like, these could have been part of the Steven Bomb that we got like 3 months later. Anyway, these are two of my favorite episodes of the show. I think these are still 4 and 5 on my list. And just what's to me like clearly what we get from these episodes that we didn't see before that's fascinating, as I mentioned, is the kind of how Peridot has preconceptions about how things should work on Earth based on how things work on Homeworld. Just she interacts with all the gems in these two, and she just like makes judgments about them, like you should behave this way, and it's some of the best storytelling the show has done, I think, these two episodes, and I doubt it's going to top it. Just to what we learn about her, what we learn about the Homeworld, and even our main cast from, specifically, I like the Amethyst and Too Far's interactions were pretty fascinating too. Of what we from Peridot's like preconceived notions with the direct parallels to our societies. I don't know. This to me is like kind of like the highlight of storytelling from Steven Universe so far. I don't know. That's a pretty high statement, but I do think the world of these two episodes here. What else that I didn't mention did you take away from Back to the Barn and Too Far?
Well, I don't think it's so much storytelling as the parallel and how this is an actual realistic representation of how we should approach like differences in opinion and how you should deal with correcting prejudice. And because these two episodes, Peridot literally just goes around and offends every single character in turn. And then the way she gets corrected is so fabulous. And Peridot really learns, and that's the thing. They don't like, and it's such a learning episode, and it does a lot for Peridot's character that she is able to learn, and then also like how she responds. Because I mean, especially in Too Far, like Peridot's like, I don't get it. Like, I thought I was being funny. I'm hilarious, right? Like, Amethyst said I was funny, and then it's like, no, Peridot, you're terrible. And like that whole like starting to understand Peridot, and of course the end of the episode where, you know, after she apologized, you know, played her tape, and Steven's like, how do you feel? And she's like, I feel big. And it's like, oh my god, Peridot, you grew right in front of my eyes. Like, look at you. Like, you're developing like a heart. And it's just such powerful characterization, and it has a lot, and it's just so real, which I think that's just something we don't see a lot. So it's not necessarily like it's not storytelling in that like it's done like artfully. It's just like real.
I mean, I would categorize everything you said as storytelling. Well, I think I use that word very generally, but yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
with
that's the thing, because you used that. Yeah,
that is what I meant when many components of what I meant. Yeah, so these are great here, and I don't know. I was looking through the bomb, and I'm like, okay, I guess we can do not like a significant Peridot presence until it could have been great and message received, kind of like the climax of this Peridot arc. And just we've talked about it at length in how it's kind of fascinating how they portrayed Peridot's like turning yet not turning in Message Received. Given the time it's been since it's now been 3 months since these 2 episodes.
Oh god.
Sigh.
What do any
pain.
like anyone can take this? Any new thoughts on how it was portrayed in these 2 episodes?
I just went back a few weeks ago. My friend was getting caught up, so I had the pleasure of binging the entire redemption arc with her on that. And so when we watched it again and we saw It Could Have Been Great, Message Received, it was kind of shocking how quickly Peridot like kept switching back and forth on like what she wanted to do. She was like, I want to contact Yellow Diamond. I'm going to betray y'all. I'm not going to betray y'all. She was very... I don't think she had a plan, and I think that's what's beautiful about it. She was so desperate to talk to Yellow Diamond, she didn't really have a plan.
Well, I thought it was more.
I
thought it was more that this was long. Like Peridot was gonna fix the solution the only way she knew how, and that was, I'm just gonna have a rational discussion with the most rational being I know, and that's Yellow Diamond. So I'm gonna message Yellow Diamond and be like, "Okay, here are the facts, right? Obviously, we should leave Earth alone. It's pretty awesome." But that's not what happened, and that just completely breaks Peridot's idea of Yellow Diamond and like how the world is supposed to operate. And so I thought it was more like the reason they thought Peridot was going to betray them is because they didn't understand how Peridot thought. Because even though, yes, now they're like, yeah, Peridot's a crystal gem, like she's with us, Peridot doesn't think the way they do. Like Peridot is still very much her mechanical, like, you know, whatever the Peridots are for, like her Peridot mindset.
Very logical.
Yeah, logical. And this is her solution. She's like, we're just going to talk it out and it'll get fixed. And that's when she meets that moment of, this isn't what it's about. This isn't what it is for Yellow Diamond. Yellow Diamond's like, no, we're just going to destroy the Earth because I'm tired of it. And so that's the moment where Peridot's like, oh, okay, world destroyed. I'm with the crystal gems, I guess. I'm this lost puppy, very confused, but at least I did something, I guess.
And like,
And
I think we're expecting this kind of A or B from Peridot, right? And it's, and I think that's, and it's definitely not. It's like she tries to have both, and and given that we've analyzed it, a lot of what Delaney was saying, that it makes sense from a certain perspective, Peridot's perspective, but also it definitely comes across like it's like it's A, then it's B, then it's A, then it's B, and it turns out that she's trying to integrate 2 perspectives into one, because that makes
and as
total
like
sense.
it said, the show is from Steven's perspective, and Steven thought she was just going to betray them. Like he locked her in a car and was like, "Bye."
The child safety lock.
And it was fascinating. I think we need to we could have a whole one of these just again on how it was presented.
Like the last 5 minutes of that episode, we could just.
No, we could. I still don't think
we have actually.
I mean, interestingly, I don't know. I feel like what happens in Message Received is kind of so deep and such depth of characterization that like when they I forgot who did it, but one of the members of the crew one of the writers posted like the outline that they wrote for this episode. They let the writers like make an outline and then they give it to, much like I make an outline for the podcast. Yes, very similar. And then they give
it's
very
so
similar.
I work just as hard on this.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they give it to
just as hard.
to the storyboarders for the episode, and then they like write specific dialogue. Sometimes they have quotes in that line, sometimes they make it up from there. And it's kind of fascinating how the episode changed looking at those 2, because it's kind of different, and it's also just like so few words given the depth of what happened. It's a little this process for the show is not what I'm used to. Like in analyzing with Cora, it's just like a straight script. The show is much different,
Right.
and I'm still wrapping my head around achieving this level of depth and the legitimacy of the process. And I'm not sure I have resolved these thoughts.
Well, it was so shocking. Also, like when this episode aired, everyone was like, "Holy crap!" Because it was like, even if you thought this was going to happen, no one thought this was how it was going to happen. So like this just completely like shattered everyone, because it was like, what expectations? Where did they go? And I think that's a lot of it. Is just it was such a shocking moment, and I think I'm assuming we'll discuss this in a moment about how we feel about if this went too quickly with Peridot or not, and given your views on that and how this happened. It was just completely like. You could wrap your mind around it, but then you couldn't. But it was just so like brilliant that you just kind of had to like bow down to it for a minute.
And I think that there's I want to, yeah, the reason I want to get into more depth at some point is, like, I think there's a tendency to, this was just very deep, therefore it is good.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily true, right? So,
Well, it's not, the two don't necessarily, like,
they don't equate,
imply the
right?
other.
Yeah. So I want to get into it more. I
Like,
feel like this
why?
is one of the more complex plots we've ever covered on either of the podcasts, right? So I feel like it needs more time to get into it more. And then we end up in Log Date, where we kind of have a changed Peridot almost. We explore aspects of her character that we didn't see. She's kind of fully integrated into Earth to the extent where she has, like, emotions and like just a wide spectrum of emotions, which we, like, clearly didn't see before. And I don't know, just it's just like, take the extremely logical decision making Peridot we see, like, one episode before, and it's like nothing. It's like everything she does in Log Date, like, is logical from her perspective, but it's still, like, just it's so not logic driven, her behavior here. So it's kind
Well,
of it's just
this is where we have the issue
from her. What do you mean the issue?
What's the
The issue with how Cartoon Network airs Steven Universe.
Well,
is
okay,
because
so
we
this
don't
episode
get any
was
breathing
supposed to
room
be
here.
well, yeah. This couldn't have been. It might have been a week after, but this was the next episode. So
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think, like, there was no breathing room here.
right. I think it would have. I think
that
it would have
would've been
played differently
sensible.
given a week. But, like, obviously, we love Log Date and Peridot's.
Yes.
Like what
Yes.
she does in it. Do we think anyone think that there's kind of a disconnect between how she is there and how she was before? And then we can use this to transition into the next topic of, like, does she go from too fast from the point she is in Return to the point she is in Log Date? Is there any sort of disconnect with Log Date, or feel free to start fielding this too fast question? Let's go around the horn on this. Like, this is a topic I proposed many times on the podcast. Like, and it was influenced by the AV Club reviews of the episodes as well. When we're both like, okay, this is not going to happen right away. As, like, this is gonna Zuko took a while. Like, we're not. She's this. First I said this is not going to be a Zuko. She's not turning. And I know. I think that is true, because I think that. Message received validates that, right? Like, she didn't turn, obviously. So she turns, but, like, it's not. It's too complex. Like, it was unrealistic to expect her to just be like, okay, I'm a crystal gem now, right? Like, it's not how it happened at all. So, but yet, it also just happens in less than 10 episodes. So, looking back, what are your thoughts on whether it happened too fast? You could also say, like, it was done well, but it also happened fast. Let's start with Delaney.
I do not think at all that this was done too quickly. I have said the entire time this has been going on that the way they've handled Peridot and everything that Peridot has done has been so realistic, and it's very difficult. Like, and even if we were to break it down into an actual literal time frame for Steven Universe, it isn't too fast. Like, everything just feels so natural, and it happens in such a real, clever way. Also, like, it just feels right. Like Peridot's arc is just, for me, one of the most brilliantly and, like, it's just so well done, and it was not too fast for me, and I don't think, and I can't even imagine, like, why, like, aside from, like, the episodes are, like, 10 minutes long, and sometimes we get thrown, like, 5 at once, and then we're like, oh god, what happened? I just still don't. It's not too fast. Like, it's just done so well.
Justin.
Yeah, I think if you thought it was done too fast, I think that's almost why they gave us Log Date, was to show us how long Peridot was actually with the crystal gems, how much he integrated outside of what we saw. And so I feel like they almost predicted that people would say it was too fast, and so they wanted to show that in the timeline it made sense. It's just we only saw Steven's perspective on it. So I honestly really like the way they did it.
That's a great point. That episode is kind of being like, no, there's all this happening at the same time, right? That's basically the entire concept behind that episode.
Like, it's a settle in episode.
Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with Justin. I think, like, I like that Log Date aired when it did, and I think because, you know, if Log Date had aired before, there would have been a lot less questioning from an audience perspective if Peridot would have, like, turned the crystal gems in or not, because we see how much she grows, and, like, she finally gets her one with Garnet, you know, like, it's a resolve. Like, she's had her bit with all the other gems, and she's understanding. Yeah, she's like, yeah, she had her field
Took my
trip.
line.
And you know, and one thing, if we're gonna talk about it being too fast, I think one thing I agree with Delaney about is like Peridot. You get such a good understanding how Peridot views like issues and problems from a logical lens. And like especially in Too Far when they go to the moon and she has that like terrible like word vomit about rose quartz just like making a muck of her plan to keep the Earth safe since like now it's gonna get completely destroyed anyway, and like the crystal gems are just so angry because that's like everything they've been devoting themselves to for thousands of years, and she just like doesn't understand why she messed up because she's like, well, that's the truth, like why are you mad? Like it could have been so much better, you know, it could have been useful to the world that created you and that you were made for. Like this could have been this wonderful thing. And so you get this really good idea of like how her mind works. And so when she finally goes to Yellow Diamond to be like, no, like, because it's not like out of like Steven doesn't teach her how to like love, you know, like something like really corny like that, which I think like internally that was one of my big fears. Like if it was going to happen too fast, it was going to be for some really mushy reason that didn't make sense given her character. And it's not. She goes to Yellow Diamond and she's like, look, this planet has like organisms that can be useful to you. Like this planet has all these resources you can take advantage of. And the fact that Yellow Diamond isn't even interested in that is what finally makes her realize like, okay, well, if you are willing to listen to reason, then I guess like we're not bros anymore, you know? Which is like totally what she's been doing the whole time. So in that sense, it is really, really gratifying to see her stick to her internal character no matter what, no matter who she's agreeing with, because she becomes kind of like a constant there. It's not like she's totally transforming in any way, which I think is a lot more realistic and a lot more gratifying to see, you know?
And that's why she connects to Steven, because she feels like Steven's the only person who gets her.
Yeah.
She's like, Steven is cool. Like he I can talk to Steven, because like that's the big problem in the beginning is she doesn't want to talk to the crystal gems because they're like down her throat the entire time. But Steven,
they're so hostile. She can't, and she's so defensive. But even when she's being defensive, she's still willing to like say really like call Garnet a war machine or like tell Pearl she can't work with her. Like despite everything and how like they could totally like, you know, bubble her again at any moment. Like she sticks to her notions while she's changing her perspective based on like the information she's being given by the crystal gems.
So basically, I think that this question, back to this question, is that I think it's to be determined. I think that it is too fast, and I think I'll be vindicated in the future episodes. And I think it's too fast and it's brilliant. Like I think it can be both. But I think the problem here is that it's just like, oh, Peridot's arc's over, and now she's just going to be there. And we could have spread this out the rest of the season and had the brilliant themes that we were doing in these 10 episodes. And I don't know. I can't imagine the rest of the season being as good as this. And I think it's kind of a direct result of them concentrating the arc into such a short time frame. But we'll see.
Well, I don't like. I agree when you said to be determined because like, hello, where's the rest of the season? But I don't think like it's not going to be. Like, oh, Peridot's just a crystal gem now. Like, I think we're still
it's a prediction. It's not like a statement, right? Like, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I feel like she's just gonna be there.
I don't think her arc is like over. Yeah, like, she's not like redeemed. She's just like she's made a switch, you know. Now she's gonna be a part of the team, but like with that comes all the awkward, like weird interaction she's gonna have to deal with everybody else from now on, from this new angle of being a crystal gem, and she's still gonna be herself. So we're gonna see a lot of continued conflict, I bet, for the rest of the season.
Well, I mean, you talked about, you know, this isn't the Zuko arc, but I'd like to say this is Zuko after Day of Black Sun. Like, we're at this point where, like, Peridot's not done. Like, we still have a long way to go with Peridot. And I think...
You're right, Peridot's arc is basically Zuko. I maybe even post-Crossroads Zuko, just Season 3 Zuko.
It is post-Crossroads. She just didn't have a Crossroads.
You know what else I said about Zuko in Season 3 is that he's turned good way too fast. I also said that, so I think that these are
But Peridot, Peridot isn't...
What's brilliant about Peridot's arc is she didn't turn good. She's just now here, right? Like
yeah.
It's there's just less going to be like fist fighting the entire time they're doing things. And I said this when we had this when we covered this episode that this isn't over, but it's just going to be more of like the group can grow with Peridot, and we're going to actually get some real interaction moving forward, because now they're not at each other's throats all the time.
Yeah, okay.
And this is where the real growth can begin.
We're already talking about this, so we'll end on future predictions for what's going to happen with Peridot now. Like, what is her role in the show like? Okay, so is she going to be a prominent character? Is she just going to be treated like the rest of the Crystal Gems are now, and like occasionally be in the spotlight? How's she going to react if other gems come back into the show? How's she going to react to threats from Homeworld? Is she going to fuse with anyone, or with Garnet specifically? Right, like
Yes.
What I don't know. I feel like we have some. What, and again, no spoilers. What's vivid in your mind about like where we're going with Peridot? Let's go around the horn again. Delaney, any future Peridot predictions?
Fusion with Steven, because I want a fusion with Steven with the Crystal Gem, and I think it's going to be Peridot. Hey, don't just be like, oh, whatever, dude. So then
I'm not saying oh, whatever. I can't imagine it. It would be interesting.
It would be interesting.
And then, like, because my thing is like, it's either that or Peridot will never fuse, because Peridot is not comfortable with the idea of fusion.
Garnet.
She almost did with Garnet.
No, it's happening, dude.
She almost did, but the thing, that's
what
what's so important about the
Jade?
episode is that
What about
she's like
Jade?
opening her mind to it in general.
Yeah, she's opening her mind to it, but I really don't. It'll either be like, for me, I believe that she'll either fuse with Steven or she will never fuse. And then
bold
we're gonna have more Peridot centric episodes, but I do think it's gonna be more of like in the rotation, or more of like just the gyms acting as a unit for a while, like more missions, I think, and like because we kind of got out of that for a little bit, and I think we're gonna go back in and more like actual cooperation, like, oh, we have to stop the cluster.
Yeah, the cluster's still like a huge problem.
The world's still gonna end.
Working
like
together
have
for
the
that.
cluster. Everyone was so worried about Yellow Diamond. It's like we actually have a real problem.
Yeah, I just assumed it would be the mid-season finale. Nope, that was Yellow Diamond. Justin, specific predictions. Peridot.
I think that now that Peridot is accustomed to the gems, we're going to see her interacting, I guess, in Beach City. I mean, they've kind of kept her hidden
That would
off.
be so great.
Like, I want to see Peridot go to the Big Donut. Is that so much to ask? Just Peridot, order food, please.
How would Sadie react to Peridot? Would they be like best friends?
I feel like they would be a bit. I feel like their sarcasm would almost like go off each other a bit for a second, but then they'd mellow out and be fine. But I feel like at first they would be.
I feel like they'll love each other.
Oh my god.
Oh, they'll be best friends in a heartbeat. I fully predict Lars and Peridot will be friends at some point.
Peridot and Connie too, I think, could work really well because they both have that kind of like intelligent background. Yeah.
So they've kept her so isolated.
Yeah, read books.
They're just gonna sit there and read. Like Connie has to get Peridot hooked on the book. She got Steven hooked on.
Yeah. They're gonna talk about shipping stuff.
The unfamiliar familiars. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And they're all gonna fight over how it should have ended.
Peridot's Connie's the other Tumblr user in the group, right? So they're definitely gonna bond. Yeah.
What about Ronaldo and Peridot?
Oh my god!
No, let's just say Ronaldo. Like that.
I don't want any more called episodes for as long as we can. I
think Peridot is gonna ruin Ronaldo's life. Like just
that would be fun.
The fact that Peridot exists would just ruin Ronaldo. Like I don't think he'd be able to handle it.
She'd just tell him everything she knows, and he'd just be like, "Wait, what? Like, oh my god! Like, this is all happening in our like solar system?" Because I don't think Peridot would really get that you should keep information from civilians without somebody telling her to.
I feel like it'd literally be like a throwaway line, and then Ronaldo's life would just be over.
Yeah.
Maybe, literally something will have just happened, and then Peridot will walk by and say something like offhandedly, and then Ronaldo's like, "What?" His life's over. Like,
I'm curious how Peridot views I know she views humans. I know she doesn't think this way anymore, but like in terms of having a gem cast ranking, right? But that's still gonna influence her somewhat. So, what is are humans like below that to her? Is she gonna like actually like treat them individually and stuff? I think that's gonna be interesting to see.
Well, she did push Greg off her roof, so
she didn't know anything.
I don't know how much
was she
respect
supposed
she has.
to know?
Yeah, but that's also
so
that was also earlier, I guess, in the week.
Well, she also thought Steven was like, or Steven's the dominant race now.
Right.
Like, is she like? I feel like it's gonna be Steven, and he's like, "Okay, Peridot, we have to go into town," And then the other crystal gems are like, no, don't take Peridot. And then Steven's like, no, we're gonna go. And so it's Steven and Peridot, and Steven's like, hey, Peridot, meet my friends. And then it's just
Pulling her
like,
in a
I
wagon.
want that episode. Like, that's gonna be like ridiculous.
Michelle, specific predictions?
Well, yeah, definitely seeing her interact with the Beach City residents. Also seeing stuff with, like, hopefully Malachite resolved, because that's been a big plot question since the beginning of the first season too, and we haven't gotten a ton of it since the season's gone on. So, like, how much longer can they wait on that?
Yeah, I wanna see how she talks to Jasper. I think that's what.
And once that happens, like, that's going to be a whole nother dynamic with Peridot that's now very different, which will be really interesting to see how it plays out now that she's, like, essentially changed sides.
I think if there was a position where Jasper was just, like, there, then I think she'd just be deferential to Jasper still, because I don't think, like, she's overridden that yet.
Sure.
But I don't know if that situation presents, right? And, like, how would she react? I don't know how Lapis is on the chain either, you know? So these types of things will be...
Well, Lapis warned them about Peridot and Jasper, so I think it'd be interesting to see how Lapis, like, has to deal with this new information about Peridot. Like, will she trust Peridot?
Oh yeah, Lapis won't process. Won't
should
be able
be
to
like,
process the
"What?"
Peridot's
Yeah.
change. Yeah, I don't think that she's so jaded about things that it wouldn't make sense. To her. Yeah. Okay. And I don't, and like, I guess, like I said before, I feel like it's possible that we're not gonna. I definitely think we're not gonna see at the level that we've seen in these two episodes, and I don't know. I'm expecting some level of regression in like the depth of themes that we've gotten recently, because I do attribute them so much to specifically this character. Like, I don't know. I feel like she's. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is the Peridot one of your top 3 characters now? I feel like she is for me. Like, not even personal preference, just like best characters on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, she's my second favorite. She was since she started being on the show, though.
Don't make me.
Yeah, Peridot. I'm just like immediately. Poor Justin.
Oh, I mean, there's too many for 3. Top 5, I'll say. I feel like I can put her in my top 5. Because there's Connie. I was just thinking gems. But
Yeah,
there's
Connie's
Connie
definitely
too,
up
right?
there too.
Yeah, Connie is just.
Connie,
That's one thing we need.
Steven.
Connie. Like, where's Connie at?
Yeah, Connie meeting.
Like,
Peridot,
I need
that's
Connie
gonna be
doing
great.
things.
Yeah, no, we definitely need Connie.
Yeah,
marathon
like being
the show.
in battles would be really nice, since
Also
she's been
being in-
training for so long too.
Yeah, no,
with
we
Pearl.
talked. I think we talked about that. Yeah. Connie's. We haven't seen the payoff really for Sworn to the Sword yet. So,
Preview for next roundtable. Connie.
there. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, okay, so that'll wrap up our Peridot discussion. Our next one, the next time we have Sam on, we're going to talk about Rose, because Sam said wait to talk about Rose.
Yay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. But that is dependent on Rose and Rose Pearl, a lot of that stuff. I feel like that's a great topic, because I definitely think differently, as I've stated on the podcast before, about Rose and Rose Pearl than a lot of people. So definitely good discussion there. And maybe we could do Connie. I don't know. How much is there to say about Connie?
There could be a lot.
There's
We
just a
can
lot of
just
Connie's so
fangirl
cool.
Enough.
You know.
Connie's just the best.
Yeah.
I mean, Connie's progression has been really interesting too, because she was like just a side character. Now she's totally, like, essentially part of the main cast.
I'd love to wait
In a
for
lot of
another
ways.
episode where she's prominent, because it's been a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be back next Friday night talking about some topic to be determined. If you have topic suggestions, you can give us feedback at any of our feedback outlets at overlyanimated.com.
They're just gonna spam Connie at us.
It's one person, the person who sent me an ask on Tumblr about this topic, and it happened. So you too can have. It was an anon. I don't know who.
You
sent
can
that, but-
determine everything.
Yeah, and we'll discuss some topic until the show comes back, and then that'll be like a year from now. So then we'll have exhausted all the topics, and
Yep.
okay, like seriously, Cartoon Network, come on, yeah, no, there've been
Like, where is it?
there have been 7 episodes of the show in the past half a year, at maybe even more than that. It's just absurd. Okay,
Like, don't be Gravity Falls.
no, this is I think this is like
worst
worse.
Scenario.
This is like worse than Gravity Falls almost.
This
No,
is like
that's not
Venture
true.
Brothers.
No, this is nuts. This isn't worse than Gravity Falls yet.
That's hard to be worse than
Yeah.
Falls in terms of their schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. Dylan Hysen, Delaney Stovall, Justin Cummings, Michelle Anderer. You can check out all of our social media links and bio page on overlyanimated.com. subscribe at your favorite podcatcher. Search Overly Animated, and also leave us a review on iTunes, please. Do that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
We love them. We love
We have not that many of them. At least they're all positive, unlike From the Spirit World. But
Oh god, I forgot about this.
and you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons: Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, Rachel, and John, aka Hannah, Fever, Mitch, Cordell, University, Beatrice Exchange, Buzz Like Your Mailman, Rachel Rose. To be determined on John's nickname. You all haven't given me enough feedback yet in the Patreon group, so aka the only one here that applies to is Delaney. So that is pointed out to Delaney.
Nicknames are hard. You always tell me no when I give suggestions, so I stopped suggesting them.
Suggesting and having me shoot them down is better than no suggesting at all. Is
it good
those are words
for my
for life.
if you're killing him or not.
That's life wisdom right there. Okay, so next
Sam,
podcast.
Sam is the only one who gives nicknames. This is
We did nothing
established.
for this one. Next podcast is going to be, I think, Delaney and I just getting into the French episodes of Miraculous Ladybug because Nick refuses to stare at that show, much like Cartoon Network refuses to stare at that show. And yeah, not a good time for these networks airing animated shows. Just not happening, I guess.
There's nothing on anymore.
Cartoon Network's airing
Yeah,
Adventure Time, right? Like, is that
Yes,
happening?
yes, they are.
Okay, yeah, I need to catch up. And
And We Bear Bears, I believe.
Dylan,
oh
We
yeah,
Bear
that
Bears.
show. Yeah,
It's a good show.
Bears.
We Bear Bears.
We
I knew I liked the
podcasted
show.
on the first episode.
Season.
So,
And I kept bugging you forever that we could keep watching.
okay.
No.
Yeah. You were,
You should give it a shot.
You are free to write a We Bear Bears article, and then at some point, maybe I'll catch up. But probably not. Okay,
Okay,
thanks
so you just like blackmail me with articles.
Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next Roundtable and on future Overly Animated podcasts. Yeah, I already said thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Say
Bye.
bye. Yes.